Hello there everyone. In today's tutorial I'm going to show you how to make these circles micro macrame earrings. And this is what mine look like. So with the materials that I've used. So I'm using a nice blue cord there, and then I have these kind of feature beads in the middle, the larger ones. This in my case is some purple amethyst gemstone beads. You can always use whatever you want to. Then I've added these silver metal spacer beads on the edges, just to kind of frame them in nicely. So you have this nice tapered off on the end as well, to give this nice kind of tapered shape all the way along. And these are also different sizes. So they're going to hang nicely from the ear with that shape, and obviously give a really nice look and effect with this whole pattern to the earrings. So if you want to learn how to make them, then keep watching. So these are the materials that I'm going to be using. First of all, here we need our cord, and this is a point formula s-lon in this nice blue colour. And then we also need a selection of beads. And the first ones are these 8mm round amethyst gemstone beads. I think that colour of the amethyst goes really nicely with that cord. And then I have these 3mm round metal spacer beads in silver. Again, a nice combination with the purple and the blue. And then also 2mm round metal spacer beads in silver again. And then finally the findings here. So I'm using two different sizes of jump rings. The large ones here are 12mm jump rings. They're the ones I'm going to use to start out making the macrame from. And then I'm going to use these small 5mm ones to attach to my earring findings. I'm just using these earring posts and butterfly bags. You can use whatever kind that you prefer. But let's get all the materials together then, and let's get started. So then the lengths of cord that we'll need are these 7 lengths here of the s-lon, about 80 centimeters each. And these are all going to get folded over in half and turn into 2 working lengths. So we then need to take 1 length of cord at a time here and attach them to a large jump ring. So I'm taking the first length, and then what I'm going to do is fold it over in half, so both ends meet evenly like that, to find where the middle is. So that's right here, and I'm going to have this little loop keep hold of that, just like this. Then I'm going to take my jump ring and make sure it's closed completely, so you don't have an open gap at the top. Then I'm going to go through with this loop, through the jump ring. I'm just going through from the back, and then bring the loop to the front of it, and bring it down over the top of the tails here. Put your fingers through and pull those tails through that loop, all the way, so you can see it now wraps around itself. And as you pull this, it's going to pull all the way up towards the jump ring and tighten around it nicely, just like that. And now this 1 length of cord is attached. So you want to do the exact same thing now with all the others right next to each other. So once I attached all the lengths of cord here, it looks a little something like this. So you can see the set all right next to each other, but then coming out towards one side, and it's then these lengths that we're going to be working with to make the whole piece. So I just attached my jump ring here using some T-pins onto my project macrame board. Just makes it a bit easier to work with. Then we need to start making our knots. So what I need to do first of all is separate the cords into half, so 2 groups. So I'm going to have 7 lengths on one side and 7 lengths on the other side, and just kind of put them out to each their own side that they would be going towards naturally. Then we need to start making some rows of knots here, because obviously right now we have this rounded shape from the jump ring. We need to get some straight rows of knots underneath here to get into the proper pattern. So I'm going to take the furthest left cord on that left side, doesn't matter what side you start on. I'm just going to start on this one, bring it over all the others in towards the middle. Then I'm going to grab the very next cord, the first one that's coming underneath it, and then make a double half hitch, so it's coming underneath, and bring it around my finger, and then back underneath. Make sure to go through the loop of itself, so it then loops around this holding cord, making sure to go through the loop, so it creates a 6. And then when I tighten this knot here, I'm going to make sure to hold this holding cord in the direction in towards the middle. So the row that I'm creating here is going to end up, we don't want to follow the bottom of the jump ring completely because it's going to make it rounded. We need to kind of have it come straight down, so when you're coming from both sides, they're going to meet right there in the middle and create a point. So just make sure whenever you're tightening your knots, you hold the holding cord in that same direction. Then do it again, so around your finger and back through the loop to make this a double half hitch. And tighten that, and then grab the very next cord. Make sure you grab the very next one that you run into and not kind of cross them over each other. Then make a double half hitch with that. Tighten that. So we're now continuing the row that we just started. Another one here to make it a double half hitch. Grab the next one. So as we're building this row, we're gradually working our way in towards the middle. And grab the next one here. Make sure to grab the right one. You can see we're creating that straight row. And tighten that, and then next one. And now what I'm just going to do is make this knot here, and then leave this side for now. Just like that. But we still have that one cord left. I'm just going to leave that for now and put the others, including the holding cord, back out to the side that we were working on. Just because I want to get over to the other side and just start that one off as well. So all you're going to do is grab the furthest right one on this right side. Just make sure I grab that correct one. Don't get them tangled up. And then bring it over all the others in towards the middle. And then grab the very first one that's coming underneath. Make a double half hitch. And now we're just using opposite hands. So it's all kind of mirrored now from the other side. Tighten this. And again, that same angle. So you can see when we're making this row, they're going to end up meeting up right there in the middle and creating that point that we want underneath the jump ring. And the next one. Making a double half hitch one at a time. And then grabbing the very next cord. Building up this row of knots. Always making sure to grab the next one so don't tangle them up. Tighten the knot here. And then I reach the next one here, which is the same point I got to on the other side. And then that's where I just want to stop on this side as well. As you can see the point we're at, we have these two rows. They don't quite meet yet, but that's because we still have a cord on each side left to use. But the reason that I left them out is because we're going to kind of have a little gap up here. You don't have to do this, but I just like to kind of fill it in, you could say. So I'm going to add a bead, these two cords right in the middle, technically one from each side. I'm just going to add one of my 3mm rounds onto them. And then push it all the way down the cords here, so both of them, and they go through in the same direction. So it's going to end up sitting right in that gap up there, so kind of underneath the jump ring, but above where the rows are going to meet up. So that's the bead on, and just separate out your cords again. Make sure it's pushed all the way up. Then we're just going to do one side at a time again, finish it off. So I'm just going to take the left one, grab the holding cord from before, take the cord that's going to the left side, and then do another half hitch to finish off this row, and that also then helps trap that bead in place like that. And then the same with the other side, grab the other cord that's coming from the bead, and then grab the holding cord from that right side now, and then just finish off this row as well. And you can really see it just fits perfectly in there with that bead. So there we go. Now what we need to do is connect the two rows there and finalize the little point, you could say, because right now it's an open gap. So I'm just going to take my right holding cord over the left one and then do a double half hitch with the left one that's coming underneath. You can also do opposite, that's completely up to you. I just recommend stay consistent throughout your piece with what cord you cross over the other one. And then now they're completely connected there, and you have your little point right underneath the jump ring. So then what I'm just going to do is make another row underneath these rows here before we then start adding in any of the really patterned beads, you could say. So again, doesn't matter what side you start on. I just like starting on the same side, and it comes natural to me starting on the left one. Grab the very left cord, the outer one, and put it over all the others in towards the middle. And then you just want to pick up the first one that's coming underneath, do a double half hitch with that one. And then make sure when you tighten these knots here that you hold your holding cord so it's underneath the other row here to make the rows as tight underneath each other as possible. Grab the next one, make a double half hitch, just like that. And then continue like this until you reach the middle. Used all the cords on this side, then you go over to the other side and do the exact same thing, so create that row and make sure to also connect them right there in the middle to get that point. So then the first bead that I want to add into the cords now is the large one in the middle. So what I'm going to do is take the two middle cords, one from each side basically, the ones that just created that point, and then I'm going to take both of them and then add the one bead onto them together in the same direction through the bead and push that all the way down there. It's going to sit nicely. And then what we need to do is just kind of cage this in place so it doesn't keep moving around. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, just want to make sure the cords are coming out to the right side, and there we go. I'm going to make sure it's pushed all the way up so I don't have any loose cord on top of it. And then I'm going to take again my right one, cross that over my left one, and then make a double half hitch with the one that's coming underneath, and then tighten this all the way up under the cord, under the bead, sorry. Another one for a double. And then that just locks that bead in place so it's not going to keep moving around on us too much, at least not up and down the cords. So that's now in place right there in the middle. So now we need to make the sides. So we're going to be working on one side at a time but swapping from side to side, and it's the exact same thing that we're going to be doing just in a mirrored image. So I'm just going to start here on my left side, and what I'm doing is grabbing the next two cords right next to the bead, and then I'm just putting the other ones out of the way here so we don't get too tangled up. So I'm grabbing these two cords, and then we need to make a row of knots here that come out around the side of the bead. So I've got the first one, and then I've got the second one there. The first one is going to be the holding cord, the one that's closest to the bead. The other one I'm going to bring over the top of that, and then back underneath, and then back through that loop. So what we get is a 6 there, and it's looping around the holding cord. Then I'm going to tighten this all the way up, and then we need to bring it underneath, back around and through the loop. And again you get a 6, but it's just looping around the holding cord in the opposite direction, and tighten that. So that's now one full vertical half hitch. Sorry, vertical lax head, not half hitch. It's created by half hitches, but in opposite directions. And then we just want to keep doing this. So again, the next knot goes over, back around and under, and through the loop, and then under, back around and through the loop, and tighten that. And what you want here is 9 of these knots. And just for the other side, you want to do the exact same thing with the two cords that's closest to the bead on that side, but obviously, like I said, just in a mirrored image. So that means you just swap hands again. The one closest to the bead is the holding cord, and the other one we make the knot with, it goes over, back around and under, and then through the loop, tighten that, and then under, back around and through the loop, and tighten. And again you want the same amount of knots on this side as well. Then we need to connect the rows here to these cords that are coming out from the bead. So I'm just going to start on one side again. I'm going to take the left cord from that bead there, bring it further out towards the left side, and then I'm going to take the holding cord from the row that we just created on the side and bring that underneath, and that's now a working cord. So we need to make a double half hitch around the current holding cord that's coming out from the bead, and then tighten that all the way up, and make sure also right at the end of the row of knots there, and then another one to make it a double, and then tighten that. And you can see it's just going to place that row of knots nicely, shaping around the bead. Now we also just need to make sure we use the other one, which was the working cord from that row. Make a double half hitch with that. And then this is basically the beginning of a new row that's coming out from the bead, and we're now making a little point here, basically the opposite of how we finished on top of the bead. So that's the one side. On the other side we're going to do the same. Take the holding cord first of all underneath, make a double half hitch, tighten that, and this is then the other side of that point. So it's creating a row on the other side here that we're then going to keep adding to, but we need to make the rest of the sides as well. So they are now connected and sitting right on the side of the bead, and kind of you can see caging it in nicely. It really fits nicely with that shape around the bead. So I'm just going to put these cords we just used out of the way now to get on to the next level on the side here. So what I'm going to do is grab the very next two cords. I'm going to just start on one side, doesn't matter. So the very next two loose ones here, and we then also now need to start adding some beads onto these. But first of all, I just want to make a knot. So the first one again is the holding cord, and the second one furthest out is the working cord. So I'm just going to make the same knot as before. So go over, back around and through, tighten, and then under, back around and through, and tighten again. And that's the first knot. And then what I want to do is the holding cord here, I want to add a 2mm bead to, and let it drop down all the way just after that knot there. So it won't go any further. And then we need to cage that in by doing another knot with the working cord. So the exact same way. And then we tighten this, just make sure that the bead gets trapped in place by the knots on either side. Just like that, and tighten that nicely. And that's how we add in beads to this one. So then I want to, after this knot I've just done, add in yet another 2mm round bead to it. Again, making sure to put it on the holding cord. All these beads are going onto the holding cord and letting that drop all the way down. So that's now the second bead. Make a knot right after it to make sure to cage it in. Fasten it in place. And then we need to build this row continuing like this. Bead, knot, until we end up with 5 beads, and make sure to make that knot after the final one. And also, of course, you want to do the exact same thing on the other side. So grab the next 2 loose cords and then make your knot first of all. Remember to make that first knot, and then start adding your bead, knot, until you also have 5 in there, and just obviously working in a mirrored image with opposite hands just like before. So that's what we're constantly kind of swapping from side to side, because everything is mirrored on both sides. So then again, we just got to connect the rows as well to the bottom here once we've made them both. So take the cords that I was using before, the holding cords, to create these rows from the middle going out towards the side at an angle, and then making sure to take the holding cord from this row with the beads on underneath, and then make your double half hitch and tighten it so it continues this row here. And we're just building on that, but then also connecting all the other ones together at the same time. And then also make sure you use the working cord from that row with the beads. So we get all of the cords down to this row now, because we're going to need to keep using the same cords for the next step. So that's that side. On the other side, you just want to make sure to do the same. So connect the beaded row to the row here on the bottom, creating the point below the bead. Make sure to get them all the way tight, and grab the last cord and do a double half hitch with that as well. And now they're fastened in place too. So that's the stage we're at now. And then now what we have left are the final 2 cords on each side right from the top. So we're going to have a last level with beads added on the sides here. And we just start in the exact same way. So start on either side, and then the furthest outward is the working cord, and the one closest to the work we've already done is the holding cord. Remember to make the knot first of all, to kind of get the spacing right, just like that. And then you add your first bead to the holding cord, and this is now the 3mm rounds, so the slightly larger ones, they're going to be on the outside edge. Let it drop down. And then just cage that in the same way as we did with the 2mm ones. Below the bead, we take the working cord over, back around and through, tighten that, and under, back around and through. And then that's the bead in place. Now what you want to do is add a total of 6 beads on this side, and then obviously move over to the other side, do the exact same thing but in a mirrored image, and then we end up with these rows of knots with beads on the right on the edge. And obviously once we've done both of them, we also just need to connect them to these 2 holding cords on the bottom, again in the exact same way as I showed you before. So then for the next step here, what we need to do is use all these cords that are now kind of on the bottom of these rows, naturally wanting to cross over each other, to make a bit of a diamond shape or square shape. And then I've just separated them out here so we have the cords from each side so they don't tangle up with each other. And what we need to do is separate out the 2 very middle cords, so basically the ones right in the corner, but one right on each side of the corner. And then I'm going to just take all the ones on my right side here, put them a bit out of the way, because I'm going to start working towards the left side. So these 2 right from the middle, what I'm going to do is take the right one and cross that over the left one. And we then need to make a double half hitch, let's get rid of them, with the left one that's coming underneath the right one to start off our next row. And then this knot is going to sit right there in that corner, just like that. And because of this row that we're making now is going in the direction towards the left side, so the cord that I just used to make the first knot, again just putting that out of the way, just one knot per cord. Then grab the very next cord on this left side that's coming underneath and make a double half hitch right after the last one, like that, and continue like this using one cord at a time all the way out to the end until you used all of them. And then we're building up this row, making sure as well that it's nice and tight underneath the other row that we're making it under. Double half hitch here. The next cord, we're getting closer towards the end now, just like this. And the final one, make your double half hitch and tighten that. And then what we have left is the last cord that we haven't used yet. That's the holding cord from the previous row. We're not going to use that just now, just keep that out of the way. And also the holding cord that we just used now, put that out of the way along with it so we don't get too tangled up. And then I'm going to just bring in all the other cords again from the side that we were just working on, so the ones that are kind of wanting to go towards the right. And then I'm going to go back to the corner in there. I'm going to grab the very inner one on this left side. Then I'm going to take all the remaining left cords out of the way towards the left, because now we need to work on the right side and use these other cords here. So we're taking that first cord from that corner on the opposite side, bringing it over towards the right. Then we just also need to grab the very first corner on that right side, the first cord right in that corner, and then start making the row on this side as well, going from that middle part all the way out to the edge, using each and every single cord here that's coming underneath, one at a time, making a double half hitch, building the row just like we did on the other side. Grabbing the next one here, and again also making sure this row of knots is straight underneath, tight to the previous one. Grab the next one. Again, we're almost at the end with this one now. Tighten that, and then the very final one. And same thing as the other side. All we have left is the holding cord from the previous row. Put that out of the way, and then put the current holding cord also out of the way alongside with it. Now we can just separate all the cords out again, because what we need to do now is basically keep repeating this that I just showed you. And every time we do this, we take out the holding cord, so that means every time we do it we have one less cord to work with. So we're gradually reducing the amount of cords that we're using, but every time we're starting a new level, you could say, building up this diamond, we go back to the inner corner and grab the two very middle cords, one on each side of that corner. And then again, like I said, it doesn't matter whether you start with the left or the right one, so you cross the left or the right one over the other one, just make sure you stay consistent. So I'm always going to cross my right one over the left one, and then start working on that left side, because that's where all the other cords that are going to be the working cords are coming out from. And then you just keep doing this, building another row here. Once you've done that, build the row on the other side, go back to the middle, and then of course leaving out the holding cords, you're going to have less cords to work with again, until you end up with a diamond shape, and you end up right down there in the bottom corner of it. So now we have the diamond in place here. What I just want to do is kind of finish off the edge nicely. So I'm going to grab, to start on one side, the very outer cord, bring it over and in towards the middle, over all the other cords. And then I want to kind of finish off the edge by making a row of knots but going in the opposite direction. So we finish off the rows nicely and neatly. So grab the very first cord coming underneath and just start making a new row of knots here, holding the holding cord so it meets up with the ends of all the rows there. So when you start making your knots, it's going to finish them off, because you're using each holding cord from each row to create this new row here, going in the opposite direction. So just take one cord at a time, working your way in towards the middle. Again, doing the double half hitches, making sure you don't cross over the cords, but you take them in order until we're almost at the point. And the last cord on this side here, like that, and grab the very last cord, make my knot, just like that. And then I'm just going to put all these cords out of the way. Then we need to do the same on the other side. So just grab the very outer cord, bring it in towards the middle, crossing over. And obviously now we just have to use opposite hands because we're working on the opposite side. So the very first cord coming underneath, you make your double half hitch and start off your new row here. And all you want to do is continue this row right down to the point again, and then make sure to connect the two sides with the holding cords from them rows, just like we did up here right in the beginning, so you get that corner in place. So now the diamond is complete, what we want to do is start the next beaded section here. But first of all, I just want to separate out some cords because we want to get rid of a few to make it kind of graduated. So it has this kind of large on top and then smaller to then graduate outwards to more of a point on the end, just to get a nice look when it's hanging from the ear. So I'm going to separate out the two outer cords on each side and just get them out of the way completely, because we're done using them now. We're going to finish them off towards the end. We just get them out of the way so they don't get in the way while we're working with the rest. And we then have all these we need to work with now. So first of all, again, I'm going to start out the same way. The two middle cords here, one round each side of that corner or point. I'm going to take both of them and then put one of the large beads on them, and both cords through that bead in the same direction, push that all the way down. And then we just want to cage this in, capture it in place the same way as we did up here. So I'm just going to cross one over the other and make a double half hitch to make sure that that bead stays in place, just like that. And then we need to start working on the edges again, around the sides of the bead, one side at a time. So basically what we're going to be doing is the exact same thing as I showed you up in the first one, except one difference is because we're taking out two cords on each side, we obviously have less cords to work with, so that basically means we're taking out one of the rows on each side. So that row is the one without the beads right in the middle, the first ones. So that means we're not going to be making them, but we're going to go right into making the row with the 2mm rounds. So the very first two cords here, right next to the bead, on either side, start that off in the same way, making your knot first of all, just like this, and then adding your 2mm round bead onto this holding cord. Make sure it drops all the way down, and then with your working cord, separate it out here, you can find it, cage that in by making your knot on the other side of the bead. And the difference now as well from the rows up here, it's the exact same way that we're doing it, but because this row is now closer to the bead, it actually needs to be shorter. So instead of having 5 beads on this row as we did up here, what we're going to be doing here is actually adding 4 lengths, or 4 beads rather, sorry. And once you've done that, you want to move to the other side and do exactly the same thing with the 2 inner cords on that side, also adding 4 of the 2mm rounds. And then after that, we need to move to the outer ones, obviously except those ones, but the outer ones that we're going to be using, which is going to be the 3mm rounds. Start them off in the exact same way as I showed you up here, but only using 5 beads on this outer edge. And then once you've done all these rows, make sure to obviously connect them to these 2 lengths of cord coming from the bead going outwards like this, the exact same way as I showed you up here, so they all get connected and create this new row that starts off this new kind of corner and rows going out to the side. So then the next thing that we need to do down here is make a little diamond. So that's exactly the same as I showed you up here. The only difference is that we have less cords to work with again because we took out these ones from that area. So otherwise all you gotta do is start the exact same way, go to the right inner corner and take the 2 middle cords, one on each side of that corner, and make sure to cross one over the other, the same one that you've been doing throughout, and then start your new row. going right underneath the one that we made when we attached the rows on the side with the bead, and then continue it here all the way to the edge. And once you've then done this side, make the row on the other side and then go back to the corner and keep doing that, again making sure to leave out those holding cords each time, so we gradually get less and less cords to work with until we end up in that corner down there. And again, also make sure to make that edge that I showed you up here to finish off the ends of the rows nicely. So once we have that diamond done now, what we got to do is kind of gradually get towards the end and again get rid of more and more cords along the way. So first of all, what I want to do is get rid of the first set of cords. So that's the outer single cord on each side, and just push them up and out of the way. And then we need to start making a few more sections here, gradually tapering it off. So first of all, I'm just going to start on the left side again. I'm going to take the very outer cord there, and onto that I want to just attach and put on a 2mm bead right down against the row where the cord is coming out from. And then we need to start making some knots again. But what I'm going to do is take this cord that I just added the bead onto underneath the next one, and then it's coming towards more the middle now, and make sure the bead stays right there in that little corner trapped in place. Then I'm going to make a double half hitch with the cord with the bead on, and then tighten that so the knot sits right after the bead and that bead stays in that corner there. So just like that. So that's one knot, so that's a tiny little row by itself, you could say. Then I'm going to take the same working cord and bring it underneath the next cord that it was coming over otherwise, and then make a double half hitch with that. So I'm now making another knot, and the knots or rows are kind of going in the direction away from the piece. And this is now right underneath the first one, and then bring the cord underneath the next one and make another one. So we're just basically building these tiny little rows right after each other, one at a time, just like that. And then on the other side we need to repeat. So we need to get the very first cord out. Remember, we left the very first one out completely, so we're not really worrying about them other than having them out of the way. But then the very next one, so now the outer cord that we're going to be using, again add a 2mm round onto that and let that drop down. And then we basically just want to do the exact same thing on this side as we just did on the other side, but just mirrored now. So again, bring the cord with the bead underneath the next one, and then make a double half hitch, then trapping that bead in place in that corner, just like that. Bring the working cord underneath the next cord that's coming out from the diamond. Make a double half hitch, making these tiny little rows again underneath each other. Bring it underneath the next one. Again, working our way towards the middle. Like that. And then we just have one cord left to use because we have these two now in the middle. That's the same equivalent cord from either side. But I'm just going to do the exact same thing. So basically continue what we were just doing. So bring the same cord underneath that as if it was just the very next cord we had to use. And then make another knot just like that. So now we have all these cords coming out towards the sides again. And then to just finish off the edges of these two sides, I want to go back to my left one again, the furthest outer cord, bring that over all the others, then grab the very next one that's coming underneath, and then start making a row of knots here, but now go in the opposite direction than the little tiny ones that we just made, to finish off the edge nicely. And do a double half hitch with each of them, again working your way towards the middle, because then by doing this what we also end up with is that point or corner in the middle again, once we connect the two sides obviously. So that's one side. Go to the other side and do the exact same thing. The very outer cord, bring that over all the others, and grab the very next one and start this row, kind of sealing off the edge nicely, using one at a time. You can see it gives a really nice pattern as well, getting towards the middle. So we end up with that cord from either side right here in the middle that we then also need to connect to get that point. Just like that. And that's the first little section here. Let's keep the other ones out of the way. So we're now left with these cords, and basically what we want to do now is continue this, but remember every time we need to leave out a cord. So I'm going to take the very outer cord on either side, so these ones here just like we did before, and put them up and out of the way. So we're just leaving them out for now, and now we just want to start the exact same thing, but obviously we have less cords to work with, so that means on the outer cords, now on either side of the ones that we're going to be using, add your bead onto them, one bead on either side, and then otherwise use the exact same technique to do this section, closing up the edges and then sealing them again in the middle, creating that point. So you want to do this another 2 times, so we end up with 3 beads here on either side, working our way down, and then each time you're getting rid of those cords, you're getting gradually less and less, so these little sections are going to gradually get smaller as well, which makes a nice taper. So this is then what it looks like when I've reached the bottom there. You can see the very final one I did. So it tapers really nicely. And now all that's left to do is get rid of all these lengths that's just coming out towards the sides. So because I'm using a synthetic cord here, I can singe the ends down to seal it in place. But if you're using a natural cord, you'll have to use some glue before you cut off the excess. But what I'm going to do is take a pair of scissors here and then cut off the excess. I'm just going to do a bit at a time. So I'm going to start with these 2 here. And then make sure I cut them off, but leaving about 1 millimeter or 2 from where they're coming out from the piece. Cut them off like that, so we have a short little length left, because I'm then going to use that length with a lighter here to singe them down. Now obviously be careful because it's a naked flame that we're using and it does get hot. But if you don't feel comfortable with this also, you can just use glue even if it's not a natural cord but using a synthetic. But I'm then going to singe them down like that, and then also just push them in. So like I said, be careful, but you can easily do this because it's only short a few seconds if that you have it on there. And that's now got rid of those 2 cords, and it's also sealed them in place, so this isn't going to come undone. So obviously you want to do that with all of the lengths all the way around, and then once you've done that, all you got to do is attach your earring findings to this large jump ring using the smaller jump rings, and then you'll have your finished pair of earrings once you obviously made the second one as well. So this is what the final pair of earrings looks like with the materials that I've used. Obviously you can make them look very different depending what materials they use, and obviously the colors as well, but they just look like this with the purple beads in the middle, the blue cord, and then this silver metal spacer beads there. So they'll hang really nicely from the ears and give really nice decoration there on the side. So that's how you make these. I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and thank you very much for watching.